Hello, hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to this great day, this great episode, another episode of Tanama's Day Events live stream. With us today, we have the creator of Magusha, James, a part of previously Pluto Studio located in Philadelphia. James, you like to tell people a little bit about yourself?
Hello. My name is James Ellerby, and I'm the creator of Magusha Clash of the Commanders. It is a tactical, fast-paced kind of card game, but it's set in an original Afro fantasy world. And I actually got my start as an actor. I've done acting for over a decade now, all over the Pennsylvania and New Jersey areas. And I've done a lot of like Renaissance fairs and been a part of a lot of different storytelling mediums over my years and career as an actor. And then over the last, I'd say maybe 5 years or so, I've entered into the world of game design and moving up from just basic designer to lead producer. So yeah.
Wow, what an intro. We love we love to hear it. Basic designer to lead producer. So that's a good transition into the to our first question for you, which is what inspired you to center your game on African fantasy, and how did you balance authenticity with creative reinterpretation of myths and traditions?
Oh, so I mean, amazing question too. Um, African fantasy has always been on I want to say the sidelines when it comes to generalized American culture, right? I think growing up, I had always heard stories, specifically from the West African diaspora and, of course, the Egyptian mythology stories. But they were always like a few and far between, right? For anybody that's native to the States or
Hmm.
grew up as a Black person in the United States, we get like February is Black History Month, and growing up in elementary schools, you kind of get 1 month to talk about Black fantasy and Black cultures and Black myths and stuff. And I think even as a child, I've always wanted more, always wanted to know more. Surrounded by fantasies of different cultures and other ethnicities, but I wanted to learn more about African fantasies. So when I finally transitioned from working on projects to becoming the lead of a project, I wanted to make that the driving force behind my creative endeavors. Really showing a side of fantasy that really isn't mainstream as much anymore, or it isn't as mainstream as I feel like it should be. So
That was a great answer, and I feel like that mainstream side that drives one to bring together the deeper knowledge for the community of heritage and what they haven't seen before is just great. It's great. And
agreed.
also leads us into our next question seamlessly, James. Look at you. Which
Mhm.
is in the context of the cultural diversity, Africa's culture is vast and varied. How did you
Yeah.
approach representing different regions, histories, or belief systems in your game's world building?
So I want to preface the idea that African culture in itself is not a monolith. First of all, Africa is a continent, not a country. It's many countries over, it's many countries, and even within each one of those countries are hundreds of different cultures, right? So you have such a wide canvas to paint from. And for me, I really wanted to. I grew up loving Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, but not just on that like surface level of, oh yeah, I love elves and dwarves, and Gandalf the wizard. But on the next level, as I got older, I started to like really question, what did Tolkien do? How did he approach his writing? How did he approach his world building and his storytelling? And what I found was that he didn't ever really narrow on one aspect of European and Western European folklore or culture. He took a homogenization of a bunch of different aspects of these cultures. Like the dwarves come from both the dwarves come from both Scottish, but also like Celtic folklore and of course Nordic traditions. The elves are also like talked about in Germanic tribes, and he took a whole bunch of diversity of these cultures and created this unified story that we know as Lord of the Rings. Well, honestly, that's all I'm doing with Magusha. I'm going throughout Africa's vast cultures and finding the interesting, the weird, the amazing, the tragic stories of these people and their histories and cultures, which is directly connects to us as being part of the African and Afro diaspora, which is it's our stories and blending them in to create a unified world that more doesn't draw direct one-to-one connection, but absolutely pulls from all different places.
Wow. I really like that. I really like that too because it's like you're creating something really new with that. In regards, it opens up a whole possibility of inspiration, and you're actually opening up the door for someone to do what you did with Tolkien, looking at your work and seeing where they can do that, their own culture, or just refine whatever their vision they had as well. Which is like, yeah, that's I wow. I really loved how you answered that question. That was a great answer.
Yeah, yeah.
So moving into the next question, you talked about the different aspects and it not being monolith. Let's
Mhm.
talk about the mythology of African cultures in different countries as well, which is
Yeah,
African myths, legends, and folklore. Did you adapt
yeah.
into your game, like the mechanics or narratives, or why were the stories meaningful for you to include into Magusha?
Oh, the one of the big reasons why I went African is because they're not well known, especially in the area that we live in, right? Where so I wanted to grab stories that people hadn't heard of, or stories that people may have only known like part bits and pieces of, or heard through like different in whispers here and there, right? And I wanted to make those as the forefront of the of this fantasy genre, right? So in particular, we have a group of lizard folk called the Kilishe, right? And Kilishe is actually a derivative of the Xhosa word of South Africa, of the South African people, and it just means lizard. And I took that language and made it into lizard. But when it comes to their belief system, the Kilishe believe in a duality god, a god of two aspects. And I took that directly from the Dogon people of West Africa, who also believe in a duality spirit of their own, and have really taken their um, uh, religious beliefs and cultural beliefs and applied it to how they build their homes and how they structure their very way of life. And I basically took that and integrated it into the Kilishe. And then the big one is the Imonjani, and even just the very name Imonjani comes from the West African Orisha pantheon, and the goddess of the water, Imoja, right? Where Imoja might be known to some. She's actually a character in a popular video game called Smite, where it goes through different gods and myths and stuff. But Imoja is the goddess of water from the Orisha pantheon. And I took her name, but instead of just doing like a one-to-one, oh, just she's in this world. No, I took her name and turned it into an entire group of people. So now we have the Imonjani, who are a group of water-based people who came from a water-based society and empire where everything they do is about connection to the water. So yeah.
Wow, that's so creative actually. Like the thought would never like have occurred to like take one being from the pantheon, as you said, the Orishas, and then to
Mhm.
take their name and then make them the cultural identity of a whole new group of
Yeah.
a race of people in that world. Like that's such an interesting way to go about it. I would like I feel like most people would think to like choose like a group itself rather than one
Mhm.
individual to build a group on, which is like
Yeah.
that just shows the level of creativity and the thought and depth that you put into this in terms of
No,
world
thank you.
building for the game. Like that's really
Yeah, thank you.
amazing. And so speaking about the depth of the culture, the Afro fantasy, and
Mhm.
so forth, recently, previously Pluto helped host an event at Rec Philly involving just that African
Yeah.
fantasy panel. What were your key objectives in hosting like an event focused on African fantasy, and how did you want attendees to engage with the genre?
Oh man, it's funny because I'm probably gonna let you down a little bit, with my answer. But my objective was get it out there. It is you can have the greatest story ever told, but if no one hears it, it means nothing.
Mm.
So the big focus and continual focus of Magusha, even outside, I think it transcends the game, is to get it out to an audience, get it out to people, right? We live in a world of engagement, and while I feel like engagement has always kind of is something that's very prevalent now, it's always been right. We've always had engagement, but we live in a more visual engagement world now too. So but I think it's important to tell the story, to talk to people, right? You can't get feedback, and despite me being an actor for 10 years, I still get a little insecure about like creativity and stuff. So, but to me, it was very important to just, hey, here's what I created, here's what me and the team have been working on, and what do you guys think? How, I just wanted people's opinions. Honestly, I wanted to hear what people thought. Likes, dislikes, loves, any type of engagement is good engagement, especially for me as a storyteller. So,
I think that was a great answer, by the way. That was
thank you.
yeah, because it is really about that. Because it's as you mentioned before, just in the context of like fantasy, not many people, at least outside of the African culture, are really even like aware of and or searching for that information in movies and films. There's not a lot of it as of right now.
Yeah,
And I think you're 100% right about just getting it out there, getting it known, and allowing people to find the community and for the community to grow. That's a
yeah.
yeah. That's like that. Your answer was great. It's a great answer.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Well, I also wanted to ask you, like, so, like, what types of challenges and solutions were you guys facing? Like, what arose when organizing the event, accessibility, like misconceptions of African fantasy, and how did you address them?
So uh, it's kind of funny. At Previously Pluto, I'm not just a game designer. I'm actually also the head of production for Previously Pluto. So I take care of organizing all of our live events. And
Mm,
making sure like booths are set up and like actors are on time, and they have understanding where they're going to be and what they're going to be doing. My job is literally the head of setting up and tearing down and making sure our live events go into place. Um, but I've come to a very interesting section where Magusha, I'm not just helping to, I can't just be the guy who helps things set up. I'm the lead creator. So my one of the biggest challenges is literally having to set and divvy up uh, delegations for other people to take over the job that I'm normally responsible for. Because when I show up, it's very much, hey James, you need to sit down and talk to people about African fantasy that you created. And I'm like, well, but I need to help set the booth up. No, you don't. You need to sit down and let everybody else set up. But yeah, that's actually probably one of the first challenges that I've been working for. Just more of a technical challenge. But as far as like misconceptions about African fantasy, it's funny that you mentioned that. Even within the topics of my own team and the creation team behind Magusha, um, the term tribal keeps coming up.
mm,
And I, at first, kind of was like, it felt uneasy hearing that term, but I kind of let it go for a little bit. And then I eventually was like, and it was just literally just recently. I think it was about last week. I was chatting with one of the artists, and they were like, "Oh, we wanted to go and push this towards like a more tribal design." And I was like, "Don't say tribal. Don't." And they were like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, the word tribal has been used in a very negative context anytime referring to African culture for such a long time, especially if anybody knows the history of entertainment in the United States. African Americans haven't always been African Americans, specifically Africans, have not always been shown in the best of light. Um, so the word tribal is something that I very much have been trying to push my team to move away from, because I think there are way too many negative forces that enter into that word, right? And I think that's why we've tried to substitute the word tribal with the word culture, with the word group, with the word peoples, right? Even just to get away from any of that negative connotation, because I think one of the things that was they were actually specifically talking about the Imanjani being tribal, and I'm like, but they're not. They're like, I mean, if you use like the sociological definition of the word, we all have our own tribes, but they were an empire. Like they're quite literally an empire. They have art, they have music, they have dance. I'm not saying that tribal people don't have those things, but I wanted to really get away from that being a tagline onto onto the descriptions of any of these characters, even the ones that are more nature and natural in their executions of their culture. So
I think that is because when you were saying that, and you were talking about the word tribal, in my mind, I was already, I guess I was really
yeah,
tapped in. I was hearing the word empire in my mind. I was like, yeah, I know he's
yeah,
about to say it. He's gonna
yeah.
say empire, and that's exactly what you did. And yeah, I agree.
Words have power. Words have
Exactly.
power and meaning, and I think that is going to be our biggest challenge of how we push and design, and it has been since the beginning of how we push and design Magusha to make sure that we are not only paying respect to the cultures that we're alluding to, but also pay respect to ourselves as designers. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Pay respect to ourselves as designers. I
yeah.
love that. I love that so much. So about respect and like the perception of the aspects. In terms of like the reception, what were there any like surprising or heartening reactions from people at the event who attended or players from the perspective on the game or the genre?
So I want to talk about two different things in that area. Well,
Okay.
at the actual Rec Philly event, we had an amazing an amazing response. People loved it, and not just loved it, but the phrase "we need this" kept
Mm.
coming up over and over again. And to me, that was always kind of my drive of like, my drive was coming from a personal thing of, well, I want this, like, right, I want
Yeah.
to see more, be the change you want to see in the world. Like, we ain't got enough black fantasies out there. I might as well just create one, right? But hearing people go, we need this, and people coming up to me and being like, yo, that guy looks like my uncle, right? And I'm like, yeah. And, that was that is always going to be, that is the drive that keeps me creating. That's the drive that keeps me that keeps me pushing forward to this project, and gets me up in the morning too, right? The other two interactions I wanted to talk about briefly. We also did we were actually at PAX Unplugged this year in downtown Philadelphia at the of the Philadelphia Convention Center, and we had a 10 by 20 booth, and we had actresses that were dressed up as Imanjani characters. And as I said before, the Imanjani are all very water themed, very aquatic, like Caribbean look, but also like, gold and like gems and, fish nets. And we really wanted to bring out that aesthetic. One of the finest moments I had was, and again, they didn't know who I was. It was this black family, and they had two young daughters. They couldn't have been more than like 5 years old. And they came up to our actresses and were like, "Are you a mermaid?" And our actresses were like, "Yes, we are."
Oh,
And I was just like, "Oh, that's what it's about. That's what are you?" You know what I mean? It was that was one of the biggest like heart moments for me, of realizing, hey man, I'm doing the right thing, right? And then on a personal note, before we actually went live, I was actually able to bring, because we actually have a friend of mine has been making props for the different costumes and different actresses and stuff. But I had basically an Imanjani spear with me, and The lead character of the Imanjani, one of the head commanders, is named Kiana. And I named her Kiana because that's the name of my niece, who is also a Marine. And she was the inspiration. She was actually one of those starting inspirations for the Imanjani as well, too. And it was my pride and joy, the uncle. Before we actually got off to do the live event, my niece came up for a family event, and I brought the spear, and I actually got some pictures of her holding. I got the pictures of the actual Kiana holding the fictional Kiana spear. It is, and that's something that I think it's important too. When you're creating, put people you love in your stuff. Put people you love and care about, and put them in your game. You know what I mean? It'll make you smile every time people say the name or refer to those characters. But yeah,
Nah, that's some great
I hope that
advice.
answers.
Any young creators out there, that's some great advice. I hope you listening. Hope you listening. But well, in regards to that, about putting people in your games and working with people, in terms of your
Yeah.
collaborations, did you work with African artists, writers, or cultural experts to design the game or event? How did their contribution shape the project? Yeah, let's hear about that.
We are still very much kind of in our infancy, right? Now, the game has been in the game and the artwork and the world. Like, I've been writing the world for over 5 years, but the artwork has only been done for about 2 years. We are honestly in the midst of looking for collaborators. We're look to connect with people. The more people we connect with, the more like yourself, we get to show them, and they get to spread the word, and then we get to add them to the story of Magusha. Now, our current we have our lead artist Ama is phenomenal. They're based out of Baltimore, a young Black person of color based out of Baltimore, and they have been. No, their name online is Ama's Comet. If you want to check out any of their other work on their Instagram, um, or on any of their Instagram stuff. And they've been my guiding star. Like that's that that's my young sibling right there, because they are I couldn't have created half the stuff without them. And when they became lead artists for us, they were able to really bring everything that they are and can do to the project and more. So I would say that our lead art probably be our biggest, I guess, collaborator. But we've actually brought in some music, a couple of music, of some music talents from our own in studio. But right now, almost everything is in studio. But we're looking to collaborate. So that's kind of our pathway forward.
Wow, wow, that ah. Once again, I hope y'all listening. If you're trying to collaborate, now's the time to reach out.
Yeah, hey, yeah, check us out at Previously Pluto. Yeah, send us a message, hit us up.
See, I love that. That's great. I just love what y'all are doing. I love how the game's coming out and just the community you're building, the inspiration you're giving to the community and everything. Like this is just great. Jumping forward a little bit. So like in
Yeah.
terms of like future plans, do you envision expanding this game into like a series and hosting more events? How might you involve the project or deepen its impact? Like what did you have in mind?
Oh, absolutely. 100% we were looking to expand this. So, one of the things that we've kind of come to understanding with doing this project and especially going live with people, is that people want more. And we are going to be giving them more. We're going to be doing another event at Rec Philly, closer towards our Kickstarter. And people kept asking, they're like, "Is this an anime? When's this going to be an anime?" And we are right now in talks with some animators. Again, starting small. Again, the more support we get, the more Magusha we can bring to other people. But as even myself, something that I've learned is that Magusha is almost too big to just be a game, and it always was going to grow from that anyway. But the more people see it, the more people are like, "Yo, we need the full story, we need the full scope." And again, the more support we get, the more we're going to give you guys. So
Wow. Wow, y'all heard it here. So send in that support, and the more y'all gonna get. That wow, that's amazing. An anime of of Magusha. What already? People asking for it? That's
Oh
spectacular. That's
yeah.
how you know you're really doing something great. They already want more.
Yep.
So before we end, that's one to ask you this last question. Any advice for other creators? What would you tell other creators interested in exploring African fantasy, especially through concerns about cultural respect versus creative freedom?
Do not be afraid to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, but you can't edit a blank page. Do it. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to make the stuff, but are scared to make it because they think they're going to make a mistake or it's not going to be good. You have no idea how people are going to take what you give out them. And as just as much fear that you have that they'll reject it, there's just as much opportunity for them to love it and you to find your fandom. There's always going to be someone out there that's going to think it's amazing. Um, go forth and create. And check out our stuff too. We're going to be on Kicks. Our Kickstarter is going to be going live on May 20th, and then ending right at the day after Juneteenth. So people will be able to. But our Kickstarter also is people can save the date for our Kickstarter right now by just going on to the Kickstarter page and checking out Magusha Clash of the Commanders and saving the stuff. But yeah, but yeah, go out and create, make it. I want to see it. I want to see more Afro fantasy.
Yeah, y'all heard it here. Some of the best advice you could get, as you can hear already opening up the boundaries of what's possible, doing what people, as you said in your own words, what we need. Like, oh, I just gotta, tip my hat to you, James, as well as the rest of the previously Pluto team. You guys are doing great. You're doing some great work for the community, and I'm very excited to see what comes from your studio, as well as when the release finally happens. But in the meantime, y'all, don't forget. Make sure to scan the QR code on the screen, go to that Kickstarter page, and check it out. And sign up too. But James, is there anything else you wanted to say before we head out?
Uh, I don't. I think everything's kind of already been said. But yeah, go forth, create. I want to see what the next Afro fantasy stuff comes up. Right? Like I want to see what I want. I'm just as excited as you guys to see what's coming next. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for your time. Shout out to Previously Pluto for allowing you to be here with us. And also, shout out to all of y'all for taking the time to watch this episode and to share the love. Follow Tanamse at Tanamse Events on YouTube and Tanamse at all other social media platforms. We will be bringing back more of this great, great, great experiences just like this. Hope you all have a great day, great morning, and you know what? Great rest of the year. Peace and love, y'all. Until next time.